I'm sorry, Cheryl. That's all right. I want to go get one before there.
Whatever you say.
And then you know what? We'll put another chair like
It's like so unregulated. Yeah, you're like super hot or super cold. Like we're just
Did you? Exactly. You got it all figured out?
yeah.
I have a couple questions.
It's a knockdown.
Okay. Really? How are you? Doing good. You ready to go? I used to hold her. Give me a call. No more.
I'm rearranging.
What? Nice legs.
You like that? Hey, I'm walking upright for the first time in a year and a half. I got fixed. Yes. Yeah. History level fusion. Yeah. Huh? Last Thursday. Yeah.
It's amazing that you can walk away. I had spinal surgery. And I was eating milky sandwich and a little bit.
Jesus. Probably not the best. How you doing? Sometimes what they tell you
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jerry.
Ellen Grant. Vice Chair Lee. President Molinski. Here. Commissioner Wynot. Here. Commissioner Valori.
Yep.
All in attendance?
Public comment, limit to 5 minutes per person. Please state your name and if you're a township resident. Is there anybody in the audience who would make a public comment?
Charles Kepler, 133 Rose Lane, resident. Just want to make sure everyone's aware. Tonight I'll be live streaming the meeting since the call-in option is no longer available. I wanted to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to attend this meeting and any meetings between now and when the new building's opened up and we have the technology to make sure that the call-in is re-enabled. My only regret is not being able to stream the last meeting. I'm sure that it was advertised as no longer having the call-in option in the back of the Pocono record. Unfortunately, I must have missed it. So in the meantime, I will be making sure that everyone's available, everyone's able to attend via the live stream. I would also like to ask the commissioners, I guess I can't really ask here, it's just public comment, but I know a lot of people are concerned about the closure of the Pocono branch of the library. There may be some people here tonight that are hoping to ask about it. I know the last time I asked, I was told that Glenwood Hall was being considered as a location. I know there was a clean out that occurred at Glenwood Hall a few days ago. So I'm hoping that there'll be an update tonight. I didn't see anything on the agenda, but I've got my fingers crossed that we have a plan for what's going to be happening with the library in the the coming few days. So that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Cheryl Park, 150 Ruby Lane. I've been a taxpayer for 38 years. Just wanted to give you an update on the kennel. Right now, my driveway is totally flooded. The last rain we had 5 inches. My driveway is totally flooded. I did get 2 trenches dug to try to get some of it to come off. It's not as bad now as it is in the wintertime when it's totally flooded and a solid sheet of ice. The water is coming right down from where they bulldozed behind the kennel. They bulldozed the spring there. Well, the water, because it's a spring, is still coming out. So right at the bottom in a direct line, where the spring is, there's a big pool of water that just stays there. 11 dogs now. That's really something every morning and every evening and during the day. I still can't go out my property without being barked at. It's absolutely horrendous. I have no idea how they're cleaning up after those dogs, if they're using any kind of disinfectant, if that's running down into the wetlands that's right on their property. I have no idea. Just wanted to give you an update, and please keep the library in town. Thank you.
Isn't the nuisance ordinance in effect for stormwater, the nuisance definition?
That ordinance is passed, yes.
Yeah, Cheryl, there is a nuisance ordinance for stormwater.
Okay, so what does that get me?
So what, if they cause the nuisance?
Well, I guess if my driveway's flooded.
Good, yes. No, standalone ordinance, stormwater standalone. But it's enforced through engineering and code.
So can we take a look into that, right?
If they graded it,
Well, they should have a grading, if they're grading, they should have a grading permit.
Well, they didn't.
The Conservation District had come out when the Sparks had brought it up last year.
I don't know that they did.
They didn't come out. He told me there was nothing they could do since it had already been done.
I was also told as a board member there's nothing they could do, which is all.
If they're using disinfectants, I mean, those dogs go all over their deck. They're out there every morning cleaning up after them. They have 20 dog runs in their basement. I have no idea how you clean that up without drains.
I don't know how, I'm just saying, there's a. the
Okay,
flooding
well,
issue,
I'll
you might
explore
have-
it.
You might have an opportunity there.
Okay.
Anyone else have a public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Kepler, I'll answer your question basically. Not only did the manager talk to, what's her name, Cheryl?
Cheryl Price, yeah.
Cheryl Price. I spoke to her also over the phone about a month, 2 months ago, and we told them without any reservation that they would be able to stay in this building for at least maybe 2 years before it may be demolished, and that's hard to believe. Who knows what's gonna happen?
And in the meantime, we also offered them this room as additional programming space.
And then we also
Free of
gave,
charge.
rent-free. Yeah, rent-free, they don't pay anything for that, they haven't paid, and that's not an issue. Then we also said to Winwood Hall, if this building is, torn down, we would move them up there free of charge. So your issue is really with the library. You're all taxpayers from Pocono Township, and if you just got your tax bill, there's usually, I think, a 1%.
There's a library tax. on
Yeah,
that. I was
library.
gonna bring that up later. Why are we paying a library tax?
So
on the
I
library?
would ask Leo tonight if that library tax for Pocono Township residents could be eliminated since they're moving the library out of our township.
It's county imposed.
I was gonna say, who's it imposed by, the county?
It's the county.
It's the county library, whether or not they have a branch in your municipality is not relevant to the tax.
Yeah, they did raise it last year.
So they were offered to stay here, they were also offered a free location at Glenwood Hall in the future, and they're the ones that chose to leave Pocono Township. And I don't think they gave us a reason.
I assume we all got the email at the same time on
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah, it was that they feel that
Thanks, but
Glenwood
we're
Hall
leaving.
is not a suitable location.
I thought maybe they misunderstood our email.
I clearly talked to Cheryl, and I
Yeah.
said that she would be able to stay here until this building would be removed free of charge.
Well, I heard from your interview on
Mhm.
TV the other night,
Mhm.
that they may be reconsidering.
Oh.
Because it sounded like were saying they misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah, and we had asked them to reconsider,
Okay.
you know, it's very, I mean, everyone at this table feels that the library is a very important, vital, service that we have here in Pocono Township, and we've had great, relationship with them for over 35 years. I'd hate to see that go away, especially if this building's just gonna be sitting, I mean, this part is gonna be sitting vacant, so take advantage of it, keep the library here. You know, the only thing that we can't do is just sign a, multi-year contract, because we can't bind future boards over, but again, it's a free place for them to stay.
Did we make the, email that we all received on Monday public?
Yes,
Your email was made public?
yeah.
So I think that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Under announcements, an executive session was held prior to the meeting to discuss personnel.
And litigation.
And litigation, that's correct. The township offices will be closed to the public May 20th and May 21st in order to begin facilitating the movement of files to the new building location. Services will resume on Thursday, May 22nd. Also, 1124 Skyway Drive and Model Pine Tower, which was LDP number 1424. The plans were administratively accepted at the 4/8/24 PC meeting with approval deadline of June 2nd, 2025. This project has been drawn by the applicant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
Presentations, we have a 611 Lane Development LLC, it's a waiver for a plan revision. Kitty, hey, how are you?
Yeah, pass out, this, request for waivers.
Can I just ask Leo a question while we're passing out? I'm not sure, this doesn't go back to the planning commission, since the plan sort of changed, and why they're coming straight here and not through the planning commission.
I was not aware that, I thought this would, has this been back to the planning commission for review?
It was submitted to the township engineer. And, we eliminated 8 parking spaces that were located in the Pocono Township per the Board of Commissioners' direction.
And the loading dock was removed.
And-
Nothing has changed on the plans for the building itself.
Well, at that point in time, it's what's the pleasure of the board. I mean, you can send it back to the planning commission.
Wait, did the planning commission, to the conversation today, did the planning commission approve these waivers before?
Initially, yes.
Can we do it in reverse order?
You can take it in any order you like.
No, meaning,
Oh, no, they can't go back
But,
to,
but this has made the condition better. I would assume that they passed it once, they're gonna pass it again. But we can't assume that.
can't assume that. Number one. Number two, planning commission's a recommending body. They don't approve anything. They recommend approvals, denials, tables, whatever it is. I don't know how significant this is. I'll defer to John on that issue. How significant is this?
Actually, it has less, the revised plan has less impact on Pocono Township now because of the relocation of parking spaces and loading docks.
From an engineering standpoint, nothing else has been changed? What's the pleasure of the board at this point? You can send it back to the planning commission review. It sounds like it'll be, in essence, not a lot of change. We're here.
So, can I, Joe, you mind if I jump in? Sure. So after our last meeting, is that okay? After our last meeting, the day after the meeting, I thought more about my vote on that wetland. And I just didn't like it. Especially when it's being impacted by parking spots that weren't needed, by a, second loading dock, turnaround, whatever you wanna call it, that wasn't needed. So I spoke with John, and then spoke with Hamilton Township's engineers to make sure Hamilton Township wouldn't have an issue with it, they don't have an issue with it. And then I spoke with their engineer. And we sort of went round and round a little bit, but we ended up eliminating those 5 parking, 5 or 8.
It was a total of 8.
8 parking spaces.
However, we incorporated 6 into Hamilton Township.
But Hamilton, this is our tax money. This is $27,000-ish a year in our taxes. And what I have in front of me is a plan that was approved in 2013 for this same property. And John, the township does not have the right to approve filling a wetland, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, DEP would have to have approved that.
That is correct.
Okay, DEP does not have wetland buffers, is that correct?
It's also correct.
But the township has wetland buffers, but has the ability to waive those buffers.
Yes.
In 2013, the fully approved permitted drawings were to fill that particular wetland. And I can provide copies to anybody. I was involved in the permitting. And this is what was gonna go on top of it. It was gonna be a proposed 65,000 square foot supermarket on the top of that 0.6 acres of wetland with no mitigation of the wetland. So, in talking to those guys, I asked that they make it, I was gonna rescind my vote if they wouldn't make it better. Turns out I didn't have to, because the meeting, Facebook, is that the meeting that we had no Facebook? We had no Facebook, we had to do it over again. So, we worked together, eliminated some stuff, and we're back here tonight with the same amount of disturbance, but less.
Actually, it's a little less disturbance. It's about 2,000 square feet less of disturbance.
A whole lot less impervious.
A less impervious.
Now I'm gonna make another condition after you're done.
Good.
But go ahead. I just wanted to, I wanted to put that out there so that everybody knows where this is coming from and why.
So, is the board gonna, do we have to go back to the planning commission, or is the board gonna allow me to?
What's the flavor?
Can we do it without going back to the planning commission?
Yeah, so the initial waivers as it was initially proposed have all been proposed and it's been approved from the planning commission already. This actually just reduces the amount that would be needed.
Well, I'm good. I mean, we're disturbing less with less impervious surface. I mean, that's a win-win for everybody.
Less encroachment on the way.
Yeah.
We're gonna defer that anyway.
Initially, yeah.
You know, you just never going to.
They were gonna be well.
So I provided each member 2 copies waivers 2 and 3 were the first packet that I provided. The waiver 2 is pertaining to the stream buffer. So if you open up to SK3, there's a 11x17 color plan. That kind of shows you the impacts that we have within the stream buffers, as well as the wetland buffers. The maroon area represents the 100-foot stream buffers. Because of the topography of the site, the normal Pocono Township buffer is 50 feet, but because of the steepness of the site upstream, we have to provide a 100-foot stream buffer. So for the most part, most of the impacts of that stream buffer are between 50 and 100 feet, with the exception of the existing house being removed and the installation of the new culvert and head wall above existing culvert A. So per the revised plan for the stream buffers, we have a total impact of 16,537 square feet. There is 7,824 square feet of disturbance on lot 1 and 8,713 square feet disturbance on lot 2. Of the 8,713 square feet on lot 2, which is the lot is proposed to be developed with the hotel, there's 2,862 square feet impacted by the discharge from the proposed constructed basin that is up above. Yes.
This is one piece of property though, right? So what's
Yeah,
the decision?
it's currently, we have conditional approval to subdivide this property. So the Board of Commissioners granted conditional approval at last meeting for the final minor subdivision, which created 2 lots.
Yes,
This past, just this past.
the last VOC meeting. Yep.
So lot 2 would be the lot that the hotel is going to be developed on, and lot 1 is going to be the residual tract.
So now that you've divided, you're subdividing, your parcel is no longer subject to Pocono tax, and it's going to be a lot in Hamilton Township. Is that how that works? Because right now the lot is
The building,
Pocono
the
Township.
proposed, currently the existing house is located in Pocono Township and the taxes went to Pocono Township. The proposed hotel, the building itself is situated in Hamilton. So the tax for the new hotel is going to go to Hamilton because we have to, we're demolishing that existing house. The amount of property, because the overall parcel's in 3 municipalities, there's roughly 22 acres in Hamilton, 22 acres in Pocono, and there's 5 acres up in Stroud Township.
That changes this year's here.
It's currently listed as 12
Right.
deeded
Are
parts.
both parcels gonna be 12s?
Lot 1 should I don't know, lot 1 should reside as, when we get new PIN numbers, as being predominantly in Pocono. It just won't have any improvements on it, you'll still have the land.
If it's a 12, it's ours.
Right. Well, once it gets recorded, the Monroe County all signed PIN numbers. I would anticipate lot 1 would
But you
remain in the 12.
The current parcel, the way it sits, even though it stretches over into Hamilton, the whole parcel as a whole is deeded as 12.
Right.
So even though the building would sit in Pocono, or in Hamilton Township, we would receive the taxes. We did call down to the tax assessment office, and
I was told
As
that.
did I, but it's one lot right now.
Right.
Once it divides, it's
They
gonna
don't,
be
they don't
Hamilton.
know, yeah.
It's gonna be,
This is
I
gotta
mean, why
stay
would
12.
it be ours if it's in Hamilton?
Then all we're gonna do is impact ourselves for no reason.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. The lot line still looks like it's coming into Pocono.
There is a portion of the profit of lot 2 in Pocono.
But not
Point.
enough to take the taxes away from Hamilton.
So I assume, when you first presented to us, you said Hamilton was getting, we asked the question that Hamilton was getting the taxes. So I assumed you had The division was.
I thought that was a mistake. I thought.
And Hamilton does not believe that they will be.
Hamilton doesn't believe they're gonna need,
Then I
but you're
think we
talking
need to
buddy.
figure that out before we do
100%.
anything.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not for doing anything without knowing it's ours. Theirs.
I think we can table this until we find exactly what's going on, who's going,
I mean, right now, we only have conditional approval until deeds are recorded for that, for the subdivision. Until the deeds are recorded, I'm not sure whether or not this parcel is going to.
Yeah, I wouldn't record them until we know. If I were, I'd get some, a little bit more land into the Pocono side.
But the building is going to be in Hamilton.
But the building would be in Hamilton right now, and if you didn't subdivide it, you'd Pocono's taxes.
I'm not,
It's-
I can't say that because the existing house was in the, on Pocono's property that we're demolishing.
Right, but that's one
That's-
piece of property right now. And if I looked up the pin, it starts with a 12.
Correct, it does.
So that's Pocono, no matter, you can build anywhere you want on one piece of property, it's gonna stay 12. You make two, and I guess, Leo, John, how does it work? Is the more land mass?
I don't know. I mean, this is interesting, that the whole parcel is a 12.
Right.
But in theory, they're gonna be creating a lot, even though that isn't the case. In theory, you can create a lot that's totally in Hamilton Township.
But they're
How
not
would that-
doing that.
How would that stay at 12?
And they're still not doing that, though. There's still gonna be a portion of
There's
this.
still a portion, right, but I think the
Why are you
application is
subdividing?
similar.
Why are you subdividing?
To have the hotel on a separate parcel of land. And then the
Now, this is
residual.
not a separate piece of land in our town.
No, it's not.
No.
No,
No,
it's 51 acres right now.
Correct.
So they want that
And it's,
limited to a smaller piece, because what?
Are they,
Presumably, you're gonna do something else in the future on different lots, or even just put the rest of the 51 acres in a conservation easement and not pay the same tax rate. Whatever their thing is, but why would we approve wetland impacts, even though we did all that work to make it less and they were very cooperative? Well, why would we get nothing but wetland impacts? In Pocono? No pennies. All we get is the
I'm saying,
land.
undeveloped land, so pennies of a dollar.
But I don't understand if you take a 12 and separate it into 40 parcels.
so
It should still
I
be
know
12.
originally I approached the planning commission. Your planning commission. So originally I made a submission for zoning variance at Hamilton Township. Because on the application, it had the 12 for ag tax ID, it was kicked back to Pocono.
Right.
Then I went in front of Pocono Township's planning commission as a sketch plan submission. It was stated at that point that all the approvals were gonna be via through Pocono Township. Then I know the attorneys talked between both municipalities, and then it was determined that I had to comply with both Pocono and Hamilton Township's ordinances. And Hamilton Township, because the majority of development is in Hamilton,
Yeah.
and all of the stormwater eventually goes into Hamilton, I had to comply with all of their stormwater ordinances. The Pocono Townships, I ended up having to deal with the difference of buffers. Hamilton has their buffers,
Right.
which is different than Pocono's buffers.
I feel for you. I have a project in my
But
own.
you're also,
That's
you're
fancy.
trying to, you're gonna deny a project, the Langdale project, because it's not in, you're not gonna get the tax generation of Pocono. That's kinda what you're saying.
No, we're gonna deny a waiver on our buffers, on our wetlands.
Yeah.
That we don't get any benefit from. That's what we're saying.
But in order to, I mean, part of the stream buffer and wetland buffer impact is to remove the existing house that is enhancing those buffers. We have to install a new culvert upstream of existing culvert A. Right now, there's only a 12-inch terracotta pipe that's upstream of Culvert A that takes the flow underneath 611 that has to be replaced. And that's within your buffer in Pocono Township. I cannot do the project and leave that pipe in.
I would like to get it resolved.
Couple things. What is the time frame on approval of the split? Make sure we're not up against the time issue, number one. Number two, I checked our E-code. In order not to go back to planning commission, we could issue a waiver of that requirement for the amendment if the board was so inclined. If we're not gonna act tonight, then I would suggest that they go back to planning commission for planning commission review on the reduced, to reduced impact. They'll have time at that point, it won't be an issue.
You have your NPDS?
No, not yet. I just received,
Okay, so there's time, there's time.
I just received the first technical review today.
So send it back to the planning commission.
Well, there's time. What I would do, since we have an open question here as to taxables, et cetera, and we want that answered, is what I'm hearing, the board would like that answered. You can instruct that they should go back to planning to discuss this amendment, get a planning commission recommendation, and for tonight's purposes, table any action on that.
And then how does that answer the ultimate question, where do the taxes?
Well, if they're gonna do a subdivision, it's all,
We approved that.
it's 95% of the development's in.
But they're taking a Pocono property and splitting it into two. Why isn't that still a Pocono property?
It's up to the, I believe, and I'll double check it, Brian, but it's up to the landowner to decide, and that's in a split situation, municipality split situation, it's up to the landowner, they get to make the choice. Typically, it's where the building is. Now you're gonna have 90% of that property is Hamilton, it's gonna stay with Hamilton.
When we had spoken to the tax assessor's office, Hamilton can sign the document that would acquiesce and keep those properties, even though part of.
Hamilton, well, with Hamilton's acquiescence, good luck.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, that's
No,
what
and
they
speaking
said.
with Hamilton.
We spoke with them on Monday.
Yeah.
That, I don't know. That, I don't know that.
Now, if they know they have a choice, they might be a little bit less inclined to say.
Bring it up.
Huh?
We'll bring it up, see what happens.
Because the board did approve the waiver one, which allows us to have our property line over the boundary of Pocono.
Right, no, that I understand.
But it wasn't that in the same meeting?
You approved it at last board of commissioners meeting, the subdivision with that waiver.
I'm just not gonna approve the
Wait,
waiver.
hang on. I'm sorry.
Waiver one.
Last meeting, you were
No,
here.
he didn't come.
It was the meeting, it was the meeting
Well,
that.
we made the motion.
No, but
Yeah.
last meeting, we did approve the subdivision.
You did approve it because I got the approval
Yeah,
letter.
yeah. We can still amend it. Put more property in Pocono.
Make a motion to take.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Let's collect these and go back to the general. Save the tree. Save the tree.
I mean, it's, look it up, it's where the primary structure is located, that's where the tax.
That wouldn't have been the case if it was not subdivided.
It was not subdivided.
Okay, moving on, resolutions, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-16, authorizing the submission of the Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program grant application to the Commonwealth Financing Program. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Brian, discussion?
Yeah, just a general idea of what this for, where,
It's right in front,
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're, another placard there. This is for a sensory walking trail, behind the Glenwood Hall. We provide, some sensory awareness items along with some permanent recreation, along with a, small paved, streamside trail, 48 inch, kind of like what we have for the rest, so it's ADA accessible.
Is this the young woman who came in a couple months ago and did a presentation? Where she had a sensory, that she was.
That was with United Way, that was,
Okay.
no,
Is it
that,
something similar to what she was presenting, or?
this is a lot more involved.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the list of items, from Recreation Resource. There's, some percussion instruments, there's a lot of, integration with, nature and animals, into there. There's also a, permanent recreation out there. There's, outdoor ping pong, ladder toss, cornhole, and foosball.
So, although I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea, do we have a plan for the rest of Glenwood Hall? Before we start piecing out parts of the property, what's the overall plan for that property as a whole?
This is just for the back. I mean, Amy had worked on the master plan with Jen and Patrick. So the plan was to pave the parking lot as it sits over along the side next to the dog park, and also create a secondary parking lot. So that way we're not busing people for a fishing derby and Christmas tree lighting. Also to utilize the existing Glenwood Hall that's there in the cottages. Again, depending on the direction of the board, but when this was first put together, the idea was to create a mini mountain center, community center type approach. So bring any small nonprofits that we could into the cottages, and we would keep the barn as is with no future plans. Although we are looking to see if we can bring some indoor Pilates in there, programming over the summer, and then just to preserve Glenwood Hall. But this is the start of the streamside walk and loop trail that we're trying to do. I've spoken with Louise Travel with Pocono Heritage Land Trust earlier this afternoon, and we're going to meet in the near future to work on the easements with Pocono Heritage Land Trust and Trout Unlimited. So this just the start of it.
And that will connect almost to Northampton Community College, right?
It will actually connect all the way to Northampton. It might be a 90% loop. We have easements from all but one property owner who doesn't seem like he really wants to play ball, but we're gonna ask Commissioner Wynot to pull a miracle out maybe. What?
He likes to say, you can do it, but I'm not signing it, which is a liability.
Leave that up till we have to pull the next miracle out there.
There you go.
And Dino's mirror, it's my view.
But yeah, I mean, that is the overall concept, to have a loop trail on both sides of the stream, from TLC all the way to Northampton, and to capture the Trout Unlimited habitats as well.
And this grant will pay for all of it? Is there a match?
This is an 85-15 match.
And what do we think this is gonna cost? Do we know? I saw 250, but I thought that was the grant.
For the equipment, or?
Everything put together, because I know we can use our labor as in kind, so we were planning on using, Public Works, we can handle the paving and site prep.
60 or 170,000.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we're gonna match it for.
For the equipment?
For the equipment and the in-kind, they did put the, work into it to have been the quote for us.
So what we're submitting for is $250.
And do they install it?
We would do the site prep, Recreation Resource would would do the installation. That's who we've always utilized for all the other equipment at TLC Park.
Jared, that's not the grant we talked to, Representative Matt about, right? That was for the.
Yes, that was for statewide LSA in September.
Where's the total on these quotes? It also says total 0. The recreation resource.
Here's that price.
It doesn't say 0.
One of these, two of those, one of these, two of those, but there's not how much each of these items are.
Yeah, the overall submittal will be for 250.
And the price is only good, the price of 0 is only good for 30 days.
There you go.
We better jump
It's
on
free.
that.
I'm here, sign me up.
Everything's free.
Cancel the grant.
The equipment side of it came to $137,057.
I don't think,
So that is the.
we were asking for approval though, just to apply for the grant.
Right.
Not necessarily do any of this stuff right this second.
Yeah, this is just a resolution needs to be passed before we can submit for the grant.
Right.
And if we don't get the grant, we don't.
Right, right.
Right.
I'm in favor of applying for a grant.
Sure.
That doesn't hurt.
And we're submitting it for 250,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We can worry about, if we get the grant, then we worry about the prices need to be on here before we make a motion, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's 0, that's great. Take 2.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Make a motion to approve resolution 2025-17, authorizing the submission of a PA small water and sewer program grant application from the Commonwealth Financing Authority and designated township officials to take action. Is there a second?
Second.
Brian, discussion?
We need a narrative of what this is.
After.
This is the grant for the, This is the grant that we looked at as a means to get the generator. Okay, here, that's the one.
Or just for the sewer line, for instance, sewer water?
This is for the extension up to Camelback. The NCC was the last meeting.
Yeah. Right.
So same grant, it's for small water and sewer grant, as we know, and we've been continuing the engineering and exploration of running the sewer line up to Camelback. This is for a small water and sewer grant, which is a $500,000 max submittal. Obviously, it wouldn't pay for the whole line up, but it'd be a good chunk towards it. Camelback has, there's quite a few properties up there that are stifled with development. We know we've got the Riccobono property up there, Barley Creek still having some issues, and Camelback has a failing sewer plant that also services Northridge.
Yeah,
They are.
We've actually looked
Get
at,
out of the sewer deal.
we looked at a couple options. One was bringing the line right to the intersection of Sullivan Trail and Camelback Road. And then the next piece would be further up where I was contacted by that small townhome community.
Skieside Village.
Skieside Village. And we've also heard that Camelback may be interested. So there's actually two pieces, and it's gonna cost a lot more than $500,000, but there's some need for sewer over there. There's a lot of on-lot systems, there's areas that we suspect may, be malfunctioning. We don't have evidence of it, but we suspect it, so.
So could we possibly even take on Camelback with our
Yeah.
system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think, yeah. Bring it on.
Would be good
Yeah.
inflows for us.
If we run the sewers, it'd be
Except for the
they hook
chlorine.
in, right?
Would they be mandated? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if they're within a 300-foot setback.
So is this a grant though that you can't use any other grants with? Because you probably wanna go for a bigger grant. But if you can combine the grants, then
Yes,
that.
this would be combined.
But something that there's actually some laws on the books as far as EDU fees and such and what they can be used for. We should be starting to think about public-private partnership. Pennsylvania does it for bridges. It's a $500 billion program for bridges across the state that they partner with the construction company. We've done them. You take 5 light bridges, we're responsible for the design, the construction, and the maintenance for X amount of years. And that pays us, it's a PPP. Works great. We should be thinking about EDU fees that we're getting that are beyond what are used to pay. You talking to me? No. Beyond what are used to pay debt back, and letting the developments use those to pay the millions and millions of dollars it's going to take to run these lines. And we get some buy-in.
To your point, the current tapping fees were developed based on the cost for the initial sewer system, the pipes, right? And also the upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant. This predated me, but I've done some research. So those tapping fees apply to all the pipes that are in the ground now when people want to connect. To Commissioner Wynot's point, if a developer were to extend the sewer line, right, they're bearing the cost for that capital improvement. So those tapping fees don't necessarily apply. The one portion that may apply would be the portion that's attributed to the expansion of the plant that got us up to the 2 million gallons per day. But that's certainly less than the current tapping fees that were calculated by the financial company that was engaged by the board at that time in the expansion.
If you go into debt, sewer debt, it's another, right, whatever we did the first time, and then you have to recalculate the fee you charge people, because you're.
No, I'm not talking about going further into debt. I'm talking about using their money as a contribution towards the infrastructure instead of just being copper money.
But then the rate we charge people is based on the construction costs, and, right, the rate we're charging now is based on what we've already done. When you're adding in, it all has to be recalculated, right?
Yeah, it's gonna go down.
Hopefully.
When we add in, it's gonna go down.
Yeah. So we're clear, we're talking user fees and tapping fees. I was only speaking to the tapping fees, which are specific to the capital improvement cost, right? So if the developer was doing the capital improvement, Pocono wouldn't pay anything for that. It would be the developer's responsibility.
But to Ellen's point, she's correct, the EDU fee would be anything different if we had to pass a new debt ordinance for any kind of additional sewer construction.
Yes.
But Pat, if you could just add on the importance of diversification of the effluent, because that's going to be an issue if we don't do something sooner than later.
And I spoke on this before, and I don't want to be too technical, but there's 2 measures of Pocono's capacity at the wastewater treatment plant, right? There's a hydraulic measure, which is easy. That's how much flow in gallons per day. That's what we all talk about. That's what we sell the EDUs based on. But there's also a mass loading component. And mass loading is the amount of strength of the waste, the stuff that's in there, right? So some of our users that are currently connected are either very close to, or in some cases exceeding their mass loading allocation. So let's say they own, in round numbers, 100 gallons per day of use, right? They may be using, in liquid terms, in gallons, they may be using 110 gallons a day with the strength of waste. So by diversifying the connections that we have, getting more domestic connections, we'll be able to dilute that strength of waste further. And this was it was thought about by the original planners of the connection for Tobyhanna, for example, where they anticipated the initial connection to be a stronger waste, and then future development in that area, if and when it occurs, was projected to be a lower waste. The same thing can happen here in Pocono. There's stronger waste and weaker waste, and blending that and bringing that into the system is a benefit to our system. Besides adding more customers and diversifying the customer base, I mean, that goes without saying, there's a benefit there as well.
We'd have to change our Act 527 also, right?
The Act 537 includes going up Sullivan Trail now, it does not include the Camelback piece.
Yeah. So that would have to be amended for that.
That's correct, yes.
Either to the, we might be able to do that with the planning module, it depends. Depends how DEP looks at it. It's not hard and fast.
The problem's gonna be water. We're stuck with that darn.
Well, I was just gonna say, that the only thing that might play into our benefit on that is DEP will make an exception when there's a failing sewer plant, and we do know the Camelback sewer plant is going to need.
But what about all of those other things up through there, though? That's the problem. So
It all depends on the offset of how much Camelback puts down that line.
I took part in a roundtable with Congressman Bresnahan on Saturday and presented BCRA's need list to him. They need $40 million. They were promised 21 million under an Army Corps grant. Under the previous administration, they've gotten 1 million of that and have no idea where the other 20 is. So that 40, 21 of it supposedly was given to him, but it's never, I had talked to Congressman Bresnahan a few weeks ago. He looked into it, it was never approved, never appropriated, never anything. So it was given to BCRA. Supposedly the same thing happened to the Mount Pocono Airport. Cartwright promised him $3 million and never got it approved. So they're looking for a ton of money, but we're gonna be the ones hamstrung by that.
Well, they need it, I mean, because $20 million worth of those repairs are for Pocono Township lines that are predated.
Right. That's the 21 million is just for 611.
Just for Pocono and the little
The other
station.
the other 19 million is for what we're talking about.
That's correct. I actually had a brief conversation today with Dave Horton about the same issue.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a chance to speak to Bresnahan, so.
There were 7 of us sat in a room with him for an hour and a half talking about infrastructure in the area. Biggest thing was the train.
Well, I mean, they said that, what was it, at 10 to 12 years reduced on those pipes from overpressurizing food, and that's all in Pocono Township, so it is very important. I mean, it's out of our control, unfortunately, but.
Yeah. The only saving grace is there's one small, they've done a number of studies, BCRA has done this. There's one small area along 611 that is the most severe, and that's the one that they're really trying to target to replace. They don't need to do the whole thing. But while they're planning for that, they're planning on increasing the size of the line to allow for more water up the Pocono corridor. But it's an important project.
They want a redundant line.
Correct.
On 611.
There's one line.
Yeah.
That brings
Yeah,
water from
anything happens.
Stroudsburg all the way up to Tobyhanna.
And it's scaled to half its size inside. In that section through 715, there's really bad.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Under consent agenda, I'll make a motion to approve a consent agenda of the following items. All business consisting of minutes of the April 21st, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Financial transactions through May 13th, 2025 as presented, including ratification of expenditures in the amount of $320,605.60 for the following accounts: general fund, store operations, gross payroll, capital reserve, restructured funds, and transfers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike.
Yes. The expense of $10,000 for Sweeney and Sheehan, I think he was the legal one for the LERTA. Is that a retainer that he still owes us services for?
Sweeney and Sheehan.
Is that not right?
That's not.
No, that was Eckerd Siemens.
That was Eckerd Siemens.
Oh, so who is the 10,000 for Sweeney and Sheehan? It says legal.
I don't know. I've never heard of it. Trying to think back.
I think Jared's looking it up.
Sweeney Sheehan is litigation, that is the current lawsuit.
Oh, is that our deductible on the
With
lawsuit?
Brown, correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. Under personnel, we have nothing under my report. I'll make a motion to accept the lateral.
I'm getting up to it.
The lateral transfer, Solicitor DeVito is asking us to table until further review.
So the first one,
Until next Monday's meeting, just to give an opportunity for John and I to discuss it.
that's fine. So I'll make a motion to accept an off-duty unit policy for the Pocono Township Police Department as approved by Chief Wagner and legal counsel.
Second.
Second by Natasha, discussion?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried. I'll make a motion to accept Act 120 sponsorship program for Pocono Township Police Department. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brian, discussion?
So we're approving right now that we're gonna pay somebody to go through Act 120.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we
That's
should-
great.
We should
Yep.
explain it to the public, so they know what we're approving. Somebody.
So basically, we're trying to improve, our ability to hire qualified candidates. And as of now, we've had a difficult time finding, obviously, everybody in law enforcement across the country is having a difficult time finding qualified candidates, who want to become police officers. Right now, we require Act 120 certification, which is, what you have to be certified in the state of Pennsylvania to become a police officer. So in order for us to open up our candidacy pool to more candidates, I'm asking the board to lift the Act 120 program so we can hire qualified candidates and send them actually to the academy. Basically hire an employee and pay to have them certified.
Now, is there any reimbursement for this if they don't pass? Because now you're gonna hire a police officer before.
Programs.
So I presented the contract, we have a contract, I think that was vetted by Leo, that should be in your packet. There's a contract we'll ask the employees to sign, and they will have to pay back, the expenses if they fail.
So there's a stipulation.
Yeah, there is grant money available, to reimburse, I think.
So ultimately, it costs the township $1,500 out of the $6,500.
Right.
6,500 is the fee we pay, and we get reimbursed
75%.
75% by the grant. And now we have an unlimited pool, potentially, to choose from, not just people who have spent that $6,500 themselves to go through Act 120.
Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, back in 2018, we were receiving anywhere from 75 to 100 qualified applicants, and after this last round of eligibility lists, after testing, we came up with one applicant. It's just a different world
This is
anymore.
the best of all
Yeah.
of the suggestions. This is the best one, I think.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to accept and approve the following Pocono Township Police Department policies. Control devices, conducted energy devices, officers involved in shootings, firearms, foot pursuits, officer response to calls, canines, domestic violence, child abuse, adult abuse, discriminatory harassment, public alerts, victims and witness assistance, hate crimes, standards of conduct, information technology, department use of social media, report preparation, media relations, subpoena and court appearances, part-time officers, outside agency assistance, registered offenders information, and this was as approved by the Labor Council and the Pocono Township Civil Service Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike, discussion?
Just we vetted all these things too.
Yes. Yeah, these were all presented to us in the past.
Yeah, Jim, I
Yeah.
read a lot of these. I didn't read K9. What are we talking about K9? We're not getting them again, are we?
That is an option.
The policy's there, just because we had one in the past, so we just
Page is
re-upped
still
it.
there.
We actually use that for any lost pets now. But just in case we should ever bring the program back, the policy's in place.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
I think you missed one, Rich. The second one.
Off-duty injury? I thought
We did that already.
I need that.
I'm sorry, we skipped the first one.
Okay.
Leo wanted to read it.
Yeah.
Ms. Leach?
So just two things on my list for tonight is, there was a lot of chatter, on Facebook regarding the Knox box and that ordinance. I just want to remind everybody that the, Knox box workshop is Monday, 5/19 at 12 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
So anybody that has any questions regarding the Knox box ordinance, the fire department will be there to do the presentation and answer any questions that are had. Right, Joe?
Any commercial properties that are part of it.
Commercial multifamilies.
Correct.
I also wanted to ask too, how long do we keep the audio recordings after our meetings, Jerry?
We keep ours. We have. So the policy that was set forth, was that after the minutes are adopted, at the next meeting, they're to be deleted. The previous manager I don't want to say made his own policy, but kept them on file, so we go back to, March of 2020 for audio recordings.
And they can be right to know.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a policy, that was set, that requires them to be deleted.
So that's where I'm going with this, is there was a motion in 2017 that was passed unanimously that created policy in Pocono Township that audio recordings are to be deleted after the meeting minutes are
Exactly.
approved. So I think that should be revisited as a board to make a new policy. And Leo, I'll defer to you, only because a 2-week recording, I don't know that anybody agrees with at this point, and it's a policy that was set in place, passed unanimously by the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it hasn't
It
been
doesn't have to be
practiced.
practiced, though, it's a policy that the
The
BOC
policy-
pushed through that we're not following. And I don't want to follow, please don't get me wrong, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, if the board desires to change that, a simple motion would change that policy. We have to open the agenda.
I'd like to discuss
Brian
it.
first.
No, you go ahead.
I-
Ladies first.
What I learned at PSATs, when I went to the thing, that we cannot open the agenda. There was a lawsuit, and only the 3 criteria of why you can apply, not a majority saying you can. So,
Now I didn't learn it there, but I learned it from the Ethics Commission in a sunshine here with the MCCD, a sunshine training with the MCCD, is as long as you're not spending money, you
Correct.
can open your agenda.
As long as you're not spending money.
State, as long as you're not spending money.
You can't do it to spend money.
Right. So I don't know, I mean,
I went, yeah.
what I also learned, I went to a class down there that said, don't have these audio recordings available.
So I don't wanna make a motion to open the agenda, I'd like
No.
to, discuss it as a board and try to figure out a plan moving forward. I was just bringing it up that is a policy that was put in place that we're not following, and again, I don't want to, but we need to.
Why don't I take a look at what other
Address it.
townships are doing, and I'll put together a policy for the board.
I'd like to go a step further. I'd like to, because transparency is a buzzword that's out here right now.
Yeah.
And who knows what it means? Why don't we have a work session with the public and come up with a policy for when we move to that building, if we're gonna allow people to do 2-way on Zoom, or if it's 1-way, if it's courtesy, if whatever, the power goes out, if we can, and we lose that capability, does the meeting count, or we have to sit here till midnight again, 2 weeks later because we don't have Zoom? All of that stuff, I think we should, and let everybody have their opinion on it. And,
We can do that once we move into the new building. Right now with the move and the transfer of the audio system, I don't.
no, let's do it next month, we can do it next month, or we can do it in July, it doesn't make any difference to me, but I think we should have input from everybody, so that we don't, because what people really think they want through transparency, they just have no idea of the process. They have no idea that all these waivers are approved before they get here, all these plans are done by another board. You want transparency, just go to those meetings too, and you'll see the process along the way. There's no negotiations for these things behind the scenes. It doesn't happen. It happens at a planning commission meeting, you go there, I follow them, most of us follow these plans through a planning commission meeting. but we're the last line, and then everybody comes and says we're not being transparent. So let's get some ideas.
I'd be fine with that. So, yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Ganey?
Yes, while we're on the topic of PSATs, I'll just tell you a few other things I run there, attorneys allegedly. And this is old, so, I mean, it's always been in there, this isn't new, but, when we say we, have an executive session for litigation, you generally state the subject matter of that litigation, not in detail, just, right, that it's actually a litigation and not, right, so,
I think typically we do that.
yeah.
We talk about whether it was Ari or whomever we come out and say. I think we typically,
We didn't today, but typically we do.
we didn't discuss litigation.
But why would,
No,
Yes, we did.
we did with the easement.
That was acquisition of property. It was different. I mean, that, we had a basis for it to be an executive session.
Potential litigation,
What's that?
potential
that's
litigation.
what I was gonna
don't know.
ask, is there a
I don't know.
differentiating factor in potential or actual?
You can ask counsel.
Have enough.
Because if it's potential, it's not public knowledge until it becomes litigation, so why would, if that's executive session discussion about potential litigation, why would that be then discussed? Even as a subject matter?
If there's a reasonable certainty that it's going to lead to litigation, threatened, potential, obvious disagreement where it looks like litigation, then it's subject to an executive session. I approached this evening's conversation with acquisition of property. We're being asked to negotiate on a piece of property. And litigation is potentially eminent domain, condemnation. So we're clear on that. I have no problem with that being executive session whatsoever. It's covered about 3 different ways.
But I think Ellen's question that she learned at PSAP was we have to disclose what the litigation discussion
It has to do with acquisition of property for Lone Road Roundabout.
I know that, I'm saying in general though. So if it's potential litigation, do we have to disclose that information, or does it have to be actual litigation?
That doesn't have to be actual litigation. If they threaten to sue us, then it's, potential litigation involving jury development.
Why don't you put my name out there, will ya?
Jeez, that'll be the next thing I'll lower Facebook.
The other thing, was, and apparently, we even said in the law, they're just changing the agenda. I guess it was changed in 2021, the sunshine law changed
About right, yeah.
the agenda thing. He said even though it's in there, there was litigation, and the part of where us as a majority can vote not to, can add something, he said you can't do that unless it meets one of those 3 exceptions, de minimis, or something else, and something, those 3 things, whatever they are. So could you look into that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to look into it. I mean, yeah. Policy, to me, a policy, whether a retention policy on a thing, of a meeting would be de minimis, but I know you can't do it to spend money.
Right.
That's an absolute,
one of the 3.
that's clear. You
Yeah.
cannot do it to spend money. But I'll look into that.
The other thing was, when people come up, when we ask them to, you only ask if they're a resident, but I don't know if they feel like they have to give a street address. We cannot make them give their street address for security reasons, that's what I was told.
Yeah, we don't anymore.
Yeah.
We ask whether or not they're a taxpayer or
Yeah,
whatever.
a lot of people just give it out, but they don't, and that's fine, but they don't have to. That's what I learned. I'll wait to you, John, with my usual solar field. I guess we have something to report today.
We do, I think, someone handed out a letter that I just wrote this morning, regarding the heavy rains over the weekend. We've got several notifications that there were problems, coming off of the solar field. We went out there yesterday morning. We did a very thorough investigation of all the basins, 4 out of 5 of the basins were having some problems. Basin 101 had a significant problem. It was a twofold problem. The drainage ditch to the basin, about 2,400 feet of it, was eroded and pretty much wiped out. That was bringing all the sediment into the basin. The basin could not handle it all, ended over top, and then that flowed all the way down to Swiftwater Creek. So we wrote a letter to the owners and copied the Conservation District, and that's what we have to report at this point.
Did you wanna add in anything that we talked about earlier?
Not sure
Okay.
if I do or not. So, what, we got,
Or do you want me to say it?
I don't know, I have no problem saying it, trust me.
Okay.
We got 5 inches of rain in a day and a half.
I don't know, but we got a lot.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna point, not we, but I know potentially they're gonna get fingers pointed at them, and I don't, if they deserve it, I don't have any problem with it. What I do have a problem with is a manual that has no basis in science, which is the BMP manual in this state, right? You design to a 10-year storm. 10-year storm is roughly 4 inches in 24 hours.
I think that's even high, but yeah, it's around there.
Around 4, that's 4 inches per 24 hours. But now if you got, say, 5 inches over 36 or 40 hours, suddenly it might not be a 10-year storm. Those BMPs are not designed to fail at a 10-year storm, but they can only be held responsible up to a 10-year storm. So you have a manual that's may or may not have a basis in science, that a professional engineer designs their job to. Another professional engineer, and I have a lot of respect for engineers. I've been in business for 30 years. And I have a whole lot of respect for Drew and Mike over at the district. But I have a problem with, and I voice it over there a lot. An engineer designs it, an engineer approves it, all to a manual that I don't believe is based in science. The ditch digger goes out and puts it in, gets a 10-year storm, but because it's an hour longer than the duration that the time comes in, then he gets a fine for it. I don't believe in that. And I think instead of pointing, Ellen and I talked about it today, instead of pointing fingers, we're all real good at pointing fingers. Instead of pointing fingers, we should work together. When we're gonna have a big storm like that, we're on a giant site in Luzerne County, and it's the first special protection watershed in Luzerne County. I call those folks from the Conservation District, because they don't know up there what a special protection watershed is. This is their first. We call them to the site, and let's go through it together, and you show us potential areas. Like, you want to point a finger afterwards, but show some responsibility up front. Like, are we worried about the environment, or are we worried about our reputation that gotcha? And I don't think it should be that way. I just don't. And I think those people would cooperate with it. This project has a level of scrutiny that no project in Monroe County has ever seen. It's getting inspected twice a week, and we're still playing gotcha. And I'm gonna say the same thing at the Conservation District Board meeting that I have on Thursday morning.
Well, I don't know that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're gonna play gotcha, but that's what's gonna happen here. Because they've been fined once up there.
They have. We're just pointing out where the defects were, and that they've got to put them back together. I don't disagree with your comments on the BMP manual. I've made those same comments myself.
I've heard you, that's what I said.
But, yeah.
I think part of your point, and my point is, I mean, it's brand new.
Yeah.
It should have worked. So what went wrong? Why didn't it work?
It's not designed to hand.
What Brian just said is, and I'm not sure whether the design criteria is a 10-year storm or not. I'm not sure whether the design storm is 10-year or not, but it doesn't matter what it is. It could be any year, because the possibility still exists that you're gonna have a greater storm than what you've designed for. And then you could have a blowout, which is exactly what happened. I don't, that's life. I mean, when the.
Four and a 5 failed, right? So. is
But-
that-
They're all in series though.
No, but the failures on the other three were not nearly, the big failure was one on number one, in the basin itself. Missy inspected it herself, she called me in and she told me what happened, I said, Missy, that doesn't sound right to me, I want you to find out more. So she trekked up through the woods, and that's when she found that the whole ditch had blown out. It was designed, I'm sure, properly. I mean, we reviewed it. We were under scrutiny for our review, and we reviewed it very carefully against design criteria. We reviewed it in the field during construction, and I'm satisfied that it both met the design criteria and it was constructed properly. But if you get a storm that goes outside of the model, which that's all the BMP is, big things can happen.
This storm wasn't really all that bad. I mean,
The
in comparison.
concentration.
Well, there's a lot of different components that go into the model. One is the volume of rain, which you measure in inches. But the 100-year storm that we all talk about is it's been raised to 8 inches now. Somewhere between 7 and 8 inches, depending on where you are in the state. Over a 24-hour period, and it's on a bell curve. It starts out slow. At hour number 12, that's when you're getting the real hard rain, and then by hour 24, it's just about done. That creates a volume of water that goes through all your controls. What has happened here, everywhere, you can get a thunderstorm that, now the other criteria which I failed to mention for that 100-year storm, that's over a very large watershed. I forget what the acreage is, but it's huge. It's several counties wide, not most of the state. What you can get in a thunderstorm is you could get 9 or 10 inches of rain dumped on you in an hour. And if that happens to occur over Swiftwater Solar, believe me, every one of those controls are going to blow out, even though if they were designed for the 100-year storm. You can't design for a calamity because it's just not practical and nobody could do it.
We've had rain in this region, and I'm just thinking, when this solar field first came up, and people came up to that podium and said, stormwater is gonna ruin us, it's gonna ruin the creek, and they were right. I mean, so I don't think this rain was so out of the ordinary that maybe exactly what you said, it wasn't, the BMPs aren't right, so how do we make sure, I mean, this is gonna happen then, every time it rains, and.
No, it's rained a lot during their construction period, and it hasn't happened.
And that's the other thing too, that isn't factored into determining a storm, is what led up to that, how saturated was the ground? They don't factor that in, they factor this, I mean, there has to be a number, okay, and I understand that, but they're not factoring in the ground's already weakened by it. And once it's stabilized up there, this shouldn't.
But weren't they supposed to plant while they were doing all this, and now, from what I hear, it's like a dust storm up there.
I mean, I will say,
Is there anything green up there? Or is it all dirt?
Interesting, good opportunity.
yeah, no, I mean, we did have dust issues this summer and fall, and which MCCD did cite them for. They had to send up a water truck to start spraying everything down. As far as volume goes, I did look it up over a 48-hour period. At least at Mountain View Park, we had recorded 5.82 inches of rain.
No, and I'm not excusing it, don't get me
No,
wrong.
and I
And this is
agree with
why
you.
this is why I wanna make sure that we're not cutting trees down for a solar farm.
Right, exactly, because there's too much emission. I mean, we should know,
Right.
because we were told.
Right.
And what's there, it's not gonna work, and it's gonna happen, and you're gonna ruin our high quality, exceptional quality streams, because why? Not for a good reason, that absolutely never happened. But, thank you for going up there.
the only thing I can, follow up, I mean, regardless of what's right and what's wrong, it has to be put back together. The conservation district said they were gonna issue a cease and desist until all controls were, put back in place, so.
They're gonna turn the sun off?
So, they're not empowered to issue a cease and desist, they're empowered to issue a suggestion of a cease and desist.
Yeah, I guess that's the language that they use.
Yeah, can we do that though? Can
Probably
we-
under our grading permit.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
We issued one before for different reasons.
Cause we
but-
have teeth, they don't. They can fine, it's weird. They can fine, but they can't tell you, they suggest you shut down.
So can we, Leo, do you do that, or does the zoning?
John, John has issued in the past, yes.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm authorized to by the board, I will.
I think they need to get it going, and aren't they supposed to do some planting to?
Well,
I don't know that.
They've got, they can't leave anything on this for more than 7 days if it isn't, stabilized in some manner, and they've got to have grass within 30 days, and the whole list of.
Yeah,
And I
there
think
are
all- I
plantings
think
on the
all
plan,
that
there is
planting is
grass
out
on
of
the
it,
plan,
right?
but
Probably, I'll have to look.
Landscaper.
But Meadowmix is
correct.
the forest.
We cannot unfortunately push when they plant it, so as long as they do it before final approval.
And I
that
think
plant
that's
has to
starting to
be
plant grass too, in our properties. Because we haven't been able to. You know, rain or anything else, we're just gonna be ready for a project.
So the board, have
Yeah.
John issued the cease and desist?
Absolutely.
There you go, John. Thank you.
And I think this kind of came up with, public comment. I think we should discuss the way we have public comment, and maybe in that workshop.
Do the workshop.
Yeah, and, yeah, because I know when I was in the first, in 16, 17, we allowed people to comment all the way through. And I know that changed in 18, 19, this board has never addressed it, so I think we should address it and see what this board feels.
What do you mean?
As far as when you can comment, right? It's limited at beginning and end, and there's no, people don't know what we're gonna say in order to make a comment until we say it. So I personally think they should be allowed to comment every time we take a vote, but.
Yeah, well, so prior to.
Like what's the name, the school board, the first public comment is only for agenda items, is another, I don't like that. Cause you're gonna talk about something before it even is presented, and you know the facts, seems weird.
So we had adopted the county policy back in 2018. Prior to that, it was anybody could just call out or come out for public comment at any time.
We got all night.
Just a discussion, this board's never discussed it,
We'll go to
and,
work session.
I think, yeah, that's all, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Chief Wagner?
So, Chief Wagner, Jared, and I have been working on, police cars, which we've talked about before. And we've vetted Enterprise's contract with Leo. And we're ready to sign, if it's what the board decides to do, we're ready to sign with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Not necessarily to buy a certain amount of cars, a particular car or anything else, but to have them now as an option for the township to get not only police cars, but DPW vehicles as well.
DPW and Park, yeah, I mean, if, anyone who's on the board remembers, we explored this back in 2022. Unfortunately, they were not willing to play ball with some of the, concerns from Leo. And I will say, Brian cracked the whip, put that nicely, but, Brian was able to pull off what hasn't been able to be pulled off before. This would not only save us money in the long term, but this would help us get on a true replacement plan, which is something that we have talked about for many years. We've put it down on paper, but it's never really come to fruition. And from a public works perspective or a police perspective, It will help us for budgetary planning and capital planning. The good thing about Enterprise is they handle everything from start to finish. So we would keep our current outfitter, P&D. They are Enterprise approved dealer. This is the same contract that Monroe County uses. One of the neat things about it is they also will work with Joe Bianchi, Patrolman Bianchi, who handles our fleet management and PM right now. So they will also help Andy or Best Auto, whoever we use, with the PM, and they will also track any of the issues with the vehicles, and they will tell us when the most opportune time is to sell it. They can also market it on their page versus municipal, where we only get a couple grand at best. This would have a much broader reach for remarketing for these vehicles.
And it qualifies for public bidding.
It does.
For a public bidding provision. So, I'd like to make a motion, we enter an agreement with Enterprise Leasing for fleet lease purchasing of this.
Second.
Second by Mike, discussion?
You too. Go ahead. I was just gonna ask, where's the lease agreement? What's any information? How much is it?
This is just to enter that's the agreement right there. There's an agreement and an addendum to the agreement to the changes that we have.
It's just the amendment.
We're not buying anything yet.
Yes, we're under no obligation to purchase from them.
So once we know which way we're gonna go, like with the second car that we're gonna buy now, we have a price from them and a price from you?
Fred Beans.
Correct me?
Yeah, Fred Bean.
That was my question. Once we go with them, can we opt to buy outside of them or?
100%. Yep. But then we don't get some of the services that they provide obviously for that vehicle.
Right. Have you read through, obviously you have, because you amended it, I assume.
Yeah, I read through it, and the important part is if you look at the amendment, it's section 19, which is based on an annual appropriation. So if a new board comes in and they don't like what's happening with Enterprise and they don't appropriate funds, you're obligated to pay for the remainder of that year, and then we're out of the deal. So that's the opposite.
What is the effective rate? If we were to buy one right now, did they say what their rate is?
There is no rate because it's a lease. It's a fee, not, you know this game.
I know, but it is a rate. 'Cause you have
It is a
to put
rate, and
as a rate.
you back it out, it's a
Right.
rate, and it's higher, but you get other things with that rate. The reason they changed it for us is because I don't deal with them like a township, and we have 46 cars through them right now, right? So they were not only gonna lose the township's business, they were gonna lose 46 cars through them, right? And I do the same thing. I look at all the fees, and I say, this just doesn't make sense, we'll just go buy it, and then they come back with the right rate.
Funny how that works.
You can't do it at the speed of government, or you're gonna get what they give you.
And we're not obligated, so.
Anything else?
It's an option. You're voting for an option.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
That's it, thank you.
Mr. Waters?
I'm good tonight, thank you.
Zoning? I'll make a motion to authorize the zoning officer to conduct an inspection of 126 North Lane for a potentially dangerous structure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Discussion?
Yes, what is this? Is it a house?
So 126 North Lane, we issued a property maintenance notice for failure to maintain the dwelling and then for accumulation of trash. Essentially,
Bring your mic up. She doesn't have mic, you can speak up, please.
oh, sorry. Okay, so essentially, what we observed during.
Either one, that's fine. You're good. Yeah.
What we observed during our inspection was that the roof was in a state of disrepair. There was significant water damage and mold because of improper weather protection. And then one of the electrical service entrance cables was falling from the roof. So we.
I assume it's not occupied.
No, not currently. So we are just looking for a motion to get out there and inspect the dangerous structures.
Any further?
So
Each time?
Each time?
Yeah.
You can't do jobs without a group.
That's how they get paid.
Wow.
Or you're authorized them to go on to the inspection, it's like, yeah, they get paid for that.
It's a check and balance. It's a check and balance, Brian, on the process. You know, so that the board is aware of the dangerous structure, because ultimately, the township could authorize the removal of that building. So, what you don't want is zoning, spending the money to remove the building, saying, okay, this building should be removed. So they come to you, you authorize them to do the inspection, they come back to you, the inspection with their report, and then you authorize the action.
This is the precursor before we would send it to the district magistrate.
Correct. It's a check and balance.
So when did this start though? Because it looks like April 17th, the enforcement notice was sent.
So this started as an initial sewage complaint, and Helen Gears had gone out. And then when she observed other things, that's when it got put into the zoning site.
Yeah.
So, but in the red, it says the relatives of the property owner have been in contact with our office and have stated they'll be addressing the violations. So then, we're then pushing a motion forward for essentially, for an inspection of the house. Essentially, when the property owner's relatives said they're addressing it, and it's been less than a month. Just asking.
So,
I can guess what that would mean.
as far as we're concerned, we're just trying to inspect it under the dangerous structures ordinance based on what we observed from the street. It doesn't look like the dwelling is safe for occupancy. It would take significant repair, for it to be, so we would just like to inspect it under the dangerous structure ordinance, just to be able to get inside and see what else is going on in there.
So we're making a determination based on a drive-by?
I mean, the person got out of the car, there were pictures taken, there's a significant evidence of.
But not fully walked around the entire property.
So, but when was the communication with the relatives? I'm sorry, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, it's just, when you're giving someone less than a month and it's been raining nonstop, I have many properties that are leaking right now and have been, but I can't even fix them because of the rain. So getting a roofer out right now is absolutely atrocious, to try and find someone to work on the properties. So if we have people who are actually communicating with us, why are we?
I can't give you
Okay,
an exact
forcing it.
date for the communication off the top of my head, I can look back and get back to you on that, but I believe that it was around the same time that the notice went out.
This isn't even the property owner, it's the relatives, they wouldn't even have to say legally, right?
It's not real, yeah, if we say they're helping, trying to help the property owner out, we're not even giving them ample time to try and fix the issue.
Just for a bit of background as well, the property owner is deceased, so that's why we're communicating with their relatives.
Worse. Literally, even worse.
And not to go into a deeper detail here, but there was some arguments between Helen and the relatives.
So you sent
They
them
also
a notice?
Helen and Easy.
You sent them a
They
notice?
also have to step in.
And did you give them so
But
many
but
days
it's
to
not based on
comply?
that. If it was based on the septic.
I can
plan,
check
so
over
I would
the
say
compliance period, but I
absolutely,
can check
100% go and
Yeah,
inspect.
two different violations.
Yeah, I mean, if you told them you had 30 days to comply, and 30 days is enough, we need to wait that out.
And again, if it was the sewage issue, 100% go out for an inspection, if they have a failing septic and it's leaching or whatever. But we're doing some of the dangerous structures ordinance based on drive-by, the property that looks like it's not maintained, but we don't know, and we haven't even given them ample time to fix it.
That's not maintained.
The gentleman died, correct.
So if we authorize this, they have the right to go in? You have the right to go in?
With an administrative search warrant,
We would have to apply for that as well.
not without an administrative search warrant.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I just wanna see if we already gave them 30 days, and we haven't, it hasn't pushed. Because they got a notice. So I believe our first contact should be from the April, or said they made a payment, and then.
They were given 30 days of compliance.
And when does that 30 days up?
That would be, the 17th.
No.
Oh,
Of March.
Or no, May 17th, so 5 more days, 4 days, sorry, can't remember.
move it to the next meeting, right?
I mean, I'm gonna try to see if there's any kind of communication after 30 days. That's, again, I'm speaking on my personal opinion, not for everyone. but.
There's also a sewage issue, so if you want to drag on it.
It doesn't, but
nobody
their
there
motion's
issues.
not for the sewage issue.
Sewer
And there's nobody there using the sewer, so
Yeah.
it can't be that much.
Sewage doesn't go into the zoning report, it's two different departments.
Sewage, I would 100% support right now.
Neighbor complaint, sewage flowing through your.
Oh, wait, but how is there sewer? There's nobody in the house.
Yeah, right. The relative is still using the house, the property owner's deceased, but the house isn't empty.
Oh, I thought you said exempted.
Oh, as far as I'm aware, it was unoccupied currently.
Unless the ghost is.
Yeah.
Flushing the toilet.
There shouldn't be any.
There's
sewer.
definitely, I mean, there's pictures.
There's people living there.
I don't know if they're just there on the weekend, but there's definitely sewage in that poor guy's yard.
That's, I mean, that's a different
Well, then,
ordinance
why
that would
did
be.
that go on, or
It did.
In the
It's-
last
it's-
30 days?
Oh, yeah, it's probably even prior to that.
So
This-
where's our
this-
report from Helen?
This started with Helen. Helen doesn't generally provide reports unless there's non-compliance, like at the 2 meetings ago when she had to show up.
But if she went out there and there's sewage in the yard, wouldn't she give us a report? Like, wouldn't something have to be done?
No,
Or
Helen,
she just says, oh yeah, there it is. I mean, I
No,
don't understand
she's
that.
actively working on it.
Helen's always, yeah, but Helen's never provided an active SEO report. If that's something you guys would like, moving forward monthly, we can do that.
Okay.
What's the steps then, when she sees a problem? She can require action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's licensed through the DP.
Have you ever been on Helen's radar?
No.
Holy crap, you don't wanna be there. Just saying.
I guess you've been there.
Unfortunately, I have been, because of the properties that we manage. You do not wanna be on her radar.
I've been for a long time, I doubt it.
She's great.
Is that something you guys would like?
So does she handle